So if you click on Halakha 4, you want to select commentaries. You're going to come up with a Taz. Turei Zahav. See him? Turei Zahav. You see that Turei Zahav? You see it?
Yeah.
And it's going to be the one bit. Turei Zahav bit. Or how to find Turei Zahav? It's going to be in your
Which
left
one is
column. It's going to say bit. See a bit?
This guy the Gemara. The
Yeah.
Gemara.
There you go. So remember, Ramah says that every person should study Gemara and Poskim, Talmud and Poskim.
Yeah.
Ketuv b'Drisha. It's written in the book called the Drisha. What is the Drisha? Who wrote Drisha? It'll be Yoshua Katz. Rav Shalom was one of Gedolei Ashkenaz. His mother, his wife, was a big Torah scholar. He quotes her sometimes. He writes, Yesh bale batim. There are some lay people. Nohagim lilmod b'chol yom gapat. They study every day gapat. What is gapat?
Gemara.
Very good. Gemara,
Poskim.
Perush Rashi,
Perush. Okay.
and then
Torah.
Tosafot.
Tosafot.
So they're studying Gemara in depth, like Gemara, Rashi, Tosafot. It's Gemara with the commentaries.
Perush, Shaar, Tosafot.
Velo Shaar Poskim, but they don't study the books of the Poskim. V'rayatam, and their proof is Misof Nida, from the end of Tractate Nida, where it says Tanad Eliyahu, and it's taught in the house of Eliyahu. Kol hashroneh halachot b'chol yom muftach lo shu ben olam haba. Anyone who studies halacha every day is promised to have a portion of the world to come. אבל לי נראה, but to me it appears that צריך לעסוק בספרי הפוסקים, that one must spend time in the books of the poskim. כגון רבי יצחק אלפסי, מרדכי, אשרי ודומיהם. And let me say very sharply, ואינם יוצאים כלל בלימוד גפת לחוד. And those lay people who study Gemara in depth have not fulfilled their obligation of Torah study at all. So they can spend 3 hours a day studying Gemara, but it doesn't count for Torah study. Dahi de Tana de Eliyahu, because that which they said, Tana de Eliyahu, Kol Shnei Halachot, and when it says Halachot, Pirush Rashi, Rashi explains, Halachot Psukot, clear Halachot. Shach says the same thing. Let's look at the Shach. Okay? The Shach, he's going to say almost the same thing. Look, go back to commentaries, look for Siftei Kohen. It's Shach number Hey. See him? Katav HaDrisha. The Drisha says the same thing we just quoted till now. יש בעלי בתים נוהגים בכל יום גפת, there are בעלי בתים who study every day גפת, ולא שאר פוסקים, they don't study פוסקים. I'm going to skip a few lines. דזהו שורש ועיקר לתורתנו. This is the main part of our Torah, הלכה. ואינם יוצאים כלל בלימוד גמרא, פירוש, תוספות. They don't fulfill their obligation of Torah study at all by studying Gemara. ומה שכתב רבנו תם כאן, and that which Rabbeinu Tam says, Shas Bavli Balul, that you should study Shas Talmud Bavli because it includes Tanakh, and it includes Mishnayot, and it includes Halakha. Kai Amashkatuv Lifnei. He's only referring to the people that were mentioned earlier, Alimud Tet Sha'ot B'yom, about the lay people who have 9 hours a day to study Torah. Because a regular lay person has so much time. ילמוד בש"ס, he should study Talmud. אבל הנח בעלי בתים, but these regular lay people, שאינם לומדים רק ג' או 4 שעות, that they only study 3 or 4 hours a day Torah. You know, those bums. לא ילמדו בש"ס לחוד. They should not study Talmud on its own. They must study poskim. Which goes against everything that you know in the world today. Everything you know in the world today, Gemara, well, come on, but they don't know Torah. For sure Tanakh they don't know. Halachot they also don't know. The conclusions of the Gemara they study they don't know. You're going to see that throughout the Halakha, Maran's going to soon talk about women who study Torah. It's very important to remember when Maran says that a woman traditionally doesn't study Gemara. Why not? The same reason a man should study Gemara. A man studies Gemara. It's a waste of time. What is he going to get from this? In order to get anything practical from the Gemara, you have to be putting in 9-hour days. If you could spend 9 hours a day on Gemara, and then to determine what is the halakha for Gemara, what is the musar for Gemara, what is the emunah for Gemara, fine. But most people don't have time to study Gemara more than just superficially. And studying Gemara, Rashi, Tosafot is superficial according to our poskim. So if you don't have that much time to study, and the assumption is that a woman eventually will be having a home, will not have that much time to study. It's more important to study the areas of Torah that you have to study. It's not a secondary category for women. Men who don't have time all day to study are in the same category as well. Yeah.
So when you should be learning poskim, does that now include like the modern day poskim?
So it depends who you are. It depends what, like, if you start studying poskim that are vague or ambiguous, or you're going to waste time also. So you should study Shulchan Aruch, or Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, or Ben Ish Chai, or whatever it is book that you study.
Well, like Ben Ish Chai right now, or I guess Kitzur is also fairly modern.
Correct. It's what's going to give you the ability to follow halakha.
Okay.
And then you add to that based on how much your intellect allows you and how much your time allows you.
Yeah.
That's a good question. This is הלכה ה' מקום שנהגו ללמד תורה שבכתב בשכר, מותר ללמד בשכר. In a place where there's the custom that you could pay a rabbi to teach you written Torah for money, he's allowed to charge money. אבל תורה שבעל פה, but the oral Torah, אסור ללמד בשכר. You can't pay somebody money to teach it to you. You can't charge money. לא מצא מי שלמדנו בחינם, if you can't find somebody who will teach you for free, ילמוד בשכר, so pay somebody. ואף על פי שהוא צריך ללמוד בשכר, לא יאמר כשם שלמדתי בשכר ככה למד בשכר. It's a problem that some people have. Because they suffered, they want you to suffer too. Because I had to pay somebody to teach me, you're going to have to pay me to teach you. Don't do that. אלמד לאחרים בחינם, teach other people for free. My whole life, people are asking me why I don't charge money to teach people Torah. Every rabbi does it. What do you want from me? Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to. What do you want from me? You should charge people for this, charge people for that. Nah, the B'tketz needs money. So now I should also open up a bar here because B'tketz needs money. You can't use this room for a bar. You can't teach Torah for money. He's going to give an example. Now what they are accustomed to today, to teach everything and you pay the money for it. Let's say the rabbi has nothing to make money from. Okay, so what can he do? He has to live. But even if he has money, if he's wasting his time teaching you instead of working, what does that mean? You're not paying him to teach you Torah. You're paying him so that he doesn't go get a real job. Because if he got a real job, he wouldn't have time to teach you. So you're paying him for the time he's spending with you instead of what he could be spending with his own money. Because you see that he's not working. You see that he's investing all his time into the Kehillat. In that point, you're allowed to pay him money to teach you because you're trying to keep him unemployed so he can be employed for you. But you're not paying him for teaching Torah. You're paying him for taking time from what he could be doing to teach you Torah. This halakha is an important one. I'm not talking to you now halakha. When Chachamim are owned by people, their Torah is owned by people too. You can't expect that Talmidei Chachamim should be fundraisers, and should collect money, and should be paid by people, and they should also have integrity. Nobody has integrity when they're getting paid by somebody else. You have integrity, but the moment you have to speak up against your boss, you don't have integrity anymore. You have other reasons not to say the things you say. When a person feels that their parnassah is directly connected to a certain person, their Torah will avoid upsetting that person. And Maran, how can you allow Torah to be owned by somebody? If the community says, listen, there's no choice, we have to pay the rabbi for his batana, meaning he could be doing something else, so we're going to pay for him to stay unemployed. How does he prove he could be doing something else? He's not doing something else. That he would do something else if he could. I know a man who was a lawyer, also a rabbi. His plan was to have a law firm during the week and bet kesef on Shabbat. It worked for about a year. The community thought it was a great idea until they had to call him on Tuesday. Tuesday he bills $800 an hour. So you want to get married? Wait for the weekend. You have a question to ask him? Wait for the weekend. You know the halakha you need? He doesn't have time to say it now. He's a client. Tomorrow there's a funeral. He's in court. You think it's a great idea that the rabbi of your kehillat should be employed during the week. I see a lot of kehillot, this is their complaint. Well, the rabbi didn't do anything. The schar batana, the fact that he's not doing something is what the community is paying for. For him to be available. So what happens when you have a rabbi who doesn't do anything and he's not available for the community? There already I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say. But in a situation where I see a lot of community. I had a community now. They wanted me to find them a rabbi, help find them somebody. They wanted to teach him how to work in the diamond industry, so he should pay his bills 6 days a week, and they'd hire him for Shabbat. They give him a job in the diamond business. So what happens when you need him on Tuesday? He'll take off for us. You're living in a la-la land. The other way around is also not healthy, though. The way where the rabbi believes that Talmidei Chachamim are paid to teach. Essentially, forgive me the word, they're prostituting their Torah to other people. That's the word. You found this with many rabbis of the last generation. Rabbis who were observant, who went to go work in Kehillat, they weren't. Just because they wanted the money. The money was very enticing. I'm not judging that. But in that moment is when you begin to see the deterioration of the Torah. From the Chachamim who didn't care what you said about them, to the Chachamim that they can't say anything because they're terrified of what the donor is going to say. More often than not, who's the donor? It's very rare to find a donor who's also obedient to the Torah, who cares about the Torah, who's submissive to the Torah. Most of the donors are paying you so that you don't bother them with your Torah.
That's true.
And those people are who control the Jewish community. You guys say, why does the Jewish community look the way it does? It looks that way because the Torah has been sold for what? For a nizid adashim, for a bowl of lentil soup.
Woe to him who used the Torah as a spade in this
That's
world.
right, that's right. But the other rabbi says, well, what's my choice? I'm going to die from starvation? The problem is, I don't have a right answer for you. There are communities that, I once went to Beit Knesset. We offer a lot of money. Why would we offer so much money? We're paying you to shut up. We're paying you to be quiet. Don't talk to us about Shabbat. Don't talk to us about kashrut. Don't waste our time with classes. Just be there for the bar mitzvahs. I'm sure there are a lot of rabbis who will be very happy with those conditions. But don't pretend that you're a person of integrity. One of the Chachamim once said that if Talmidei Chachamim were not dependent on people, their influence would be so much greater. Because who do they have to be afraid of? What could you do to them that, you're going to fire him? He doesn't take your money. You're going to threaten him? He doesn't work for you. Okay. The Jewish community is light years away from this idea. Isha shlamda Torah. If a woman studies Torah, yesh la sachar, she receives a reward. Aval lo kischar ha'ish, but she does not receive a reward like a man does. Why? Mipnei she'ina mitzuva ve'osa. Because she's not commanded, and she still does it. Afapi she'esh la schar, she has sachar. When someone is obligated in something, and someone is not obligated in something, let's say a guy, I don't know, a lady comes home, finds her husband cleaned the kitchen, made dinner, set the table. He's so impressed, so excited. And there's the guy who, before his wife leaves, says, when I come home, I expect the kitchen should be clean. Which of those two husbands did a bigger mitzvah?
I think the one who cleaned the kitchen for the wife.
You would think, which one? The first one or the second
The
one?
first one.
You would think it's the first one. HaShamayim so knows it's the second one. See, the first one did it because he wanted to. The second one has every yetzer hara in the world not to do it. You told me to. Who do you think you are? When a person is commanded to study Torah, the fact that they give in and they listen is greater than the one who did it on their own. One could argue, I'm not saying, one could argue that in this spirit, you could say that a woman who studies Torah, it's easier because she doesn't have a yetzer hara, because she's not obligated in that mitzvah. The man who has the obligation also got a bonus present of yetzer hara. Kind of like when I tell a person before the mikveh, I say, you're going into the mikveh now. Until today you prayed and you came to classes and you did it, and look, you know that I'm right, because just look, think in your head, don't say anything, think. You've been to every class, every tefillah, every this, every that. The moment you come out of the mikveh, you're going to stop coming to classes. Your tefillah is not going to be the same tefillah that was yesterday. Shabbat, it's going to be hard for you. Because now you have yetzer hara. It's really easy to do things when you don't have a yetzer hara for. But now that you're commanded, Chachamim say, Gadol hamitzuveh ve'oseh, greater is the one who was commanded to do something and did it than the one who was not commanded and did it. So we're not taking away from a woman the ability to study Torah. Simply, the reward is different. Now, what do I care about reward? You don't have to care about reward at all. I'm just quoting a halachic reality. V'afa pishash chaim, she has a reward. Sivu chazal, our rabbi is commanded, shelo yilamed adam et bito Torah. We're in Sefaria, if you go to Halakha.
Can I have to borrow someone's phone?
Oh, okay.
Can I connect with you?
Oh, you want to do? Yeah, we can do that.
Shelo yilamed adam bito Torah. A person should not teach his daughter Torah. Mipnei sherov hanashim, because most women en da'atam mechuvenet lehitlamed. Most women's minds are not equipped to study Torah this way. Don't worry, Chav, don't shoot me. I'm going to explain. ומוציאות דברי תורה לדברי הוואי לפי עניות דעתן. And they take the words of Torah and they take it to a place of incorrect conclusions because of their lack of da'at. That's how you know there are no ladies in class tonight. אמרו חכמים, our rabbis say, כל המלמד את ביתו תורה כאילו מלמדה תפלות. Anyone who teaches his daughter Torah is as if he taught her tiflut. And one of the commentators says, Pirush dvar avera, you taught her an avera. It's only getting worse, it's not getting better.
Excuse me for interrupting. Where are we on this?
246,
Halakha,
Halakha, Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah, 246.
Halakha, Yoreh De'ah. במה דברים אמורים? What are we referring to? תורה שבעל פה, oral Torah. אבל תורה שבכתב, but the written Torah, לא ילמד אותה לכתחילה. He shouldn't teach it to her ideally, ואם מלמדה, but if he does, אינו כלמדה תפלות. It's not as if he has taught her תפלות. Says Rama, ומכל מקום, nonetheless, חייבת האישה ללמוד דינים השייכים לאישה. A woman must study the halachot that are relevant to a woman. Like what? Purity.
Why did everyone jump there?
Shabbat.
Shabbat, Tefillah, Kashrut, Tzedakah, Brachot, holiday, all the Yamim Tovim. There's thousands of halachot. Meaning, it's pretty much everything like a man. Everyone always thinks it means like 3 mitzvot. Challah, like Shabbat candles. Why? A woman is Jewish also the rest of the day. It means pretty much everything like a man. Pretty much everything like a man. Is Rama arguing with Maran? When Maran says not to teach a woman Torah, and then Rama says no, but she has to study the things that are relevant to her. Is he arguing with Maran or agreeing with Maran?
He's arguing.
You think?
No, I think
Would Maran say that a woman does not have to know the halachot that are relevant to her?
No, I think they're agreeing. So I'm gonna go bounce back. Are we saying the Torah is going back to like the Marav and all that stuff?
Let me bring you a proof.
And they're saying like that's what's not so important for her.
Do you remember in the early days of our Kola, we studied the laws of, you can bring me Mishnah B'Wach Chelik Aleph. It might be in the next bookcase. In the right, all the way on the right, on the top, right, top, right. It's hiding over there. It might be Aleph. No. Thank you. Okay, if you want later, you can open up Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, chapter 47, Halakha 14. Maran says, Nashim, women, mevachot birkat Torah. They make the blessing on the Torah in the morning. Hello, Maran, did you forget that later on you're going to write that women are not obligated in Talmud Torah? And Maran, didn't you forget that you said even though women are receiving a sachar, reward for studying Torah, a person shouldn't do that to their daughter because he's teaching them tiflut, because their dads cannot comprehend Torah and will take it to the wrong conclusions. Now, according to the Ramah, I understand why they have to make the blessing on the Torah, no? Because the Ramah that says that they have to study the halachot that are relevant to them. What about according to Maran? Maran is already telling you now that women are obligated to Torah study. Women are obligated to study everything that is relevant to them.
I thought the Rama said that, not the Maran.
That's very good. Ramah says that explicitly. Maran is telling you that by telling you that women have to make a blessing on the study of Torah. I mean, how could it say the person who doesn't eat cake today has to make a mizonot? No. If he doesn't eat mizonot, just make a mizonot. But clearly Maran also holds this way. So now that you know that, and Maran holds that women have to study pretty much the whole Shulchan Aruch. You know, alright, can I see that Shulchan Aruch? Can you get me Chelik Aleph of this one? It's over there.
Over here?
Yeah, all the way over there. It's going to be Orach Chaim Aleph. It's not in order, so don't expect it. It's not going to be blue, only brown.
Well, flame out.
That's the introduction of Maran to the Shulchan Aruch. Maran writes that he wrote his Bet Yosef.
46.
He doesn't actually say it explicitly.
You have to go to Safari.
But Maran essentially wrote the Shulchan Aruch. He wrote the Shulchan Aruch as an abridged version of his Bet Yosef, so everybody could study it. The little children, the smart people, the not so smart people. The Masa included in here would be even women could use the Shulchan Aruch. Meaning, even those who are not going to spend their whole day in the Beit Midrash studying Bet Yosef can study this Sefer. Maran holds that women do study Torah. So then now I have to answer you, now that you read this in context. So what on earth are HaShamayim saying when they say that a woman who studies Torah, or her father teaches her Torah, Kilu Melamdat Tiflut, as if he's teaching her, and we have different explanations of Tiflut, but it's not a positive thing in any direction that you take it. I could give a shiur about this for a few hours. The number of pirushim and the arguments and this and that, and suffice it to say that there was a world in which women did not study Torah. Absolutely. There's a Gemara where one of the Chachamim says, a matronita, a famous wealthy lady, came to ask him a question. And she was waiting for his answer. He didn't give it. So he says, why are you giving me the answer? And he says, Mutav shisrefu divrei Torah. It's better that the words of Torah should be burned in a fire. Va'al yimseruha lenashim, and they shouldn't give it to a woman.
Who said that?
One of the Chachamim, the Talmud.
Chamim?
Yeah, one of the
wives?
rabbis of Talmud. On the other hand, you have Talmidot Chachamot in the Talmud. Bruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir, no, she's a Torah scholar. You have many Rabbaniot throughout the generations that were Talmidot Chachamot. So what's going on here? My understanding of this halakha. Agree with me, don't have to agree with me. Is connected to what I told you about men who only have a few hours a day to study. But the Shach quotes the Drisha as saying if a person only has 4 hours a day to study, he shouldn't be studying Gemara. He doesn't have time for it. He has to study the relevant areas of Torah that he needs to know. He doesn't have the luxury to spend time doing other things. The same thing with a woman. Unless you are able to free up a significant amount of time to learn, we teach people that everyone should study Gemara. Not everyone should study Gemara. Not everyone has time to learn Gemara properly. Think about it. For all the people who go to yeshiva, let's say you send your kid to yeshiva when? In 9th grade? Start studying Gemara until when? 12th grade? Yeah? At 12th grade, let's say he's really lucky. You send him to a year in Israel. Studies a year in Israel. What does he do after the year in Israel?
Goes to college.
Goes to college. So 4 years he studied Gemara. 5th year he studied Gemara. All that studying Gemara was to get him ready to go to college. When's he going to learn Hilcot Shabbat? Hilcot Kashrut, Tefillin, Mezuzot, Jewish philosophy, how to be the person in the house who knows how to answer halachic questions. When's he going to do that? Mele, if this guy is going to sit in the yeshiva for 20 years. So maybe, I'm not convinced though, maybe he'll take 1 out of those 20 years to study halakha. But the way they're teaching people Gemara today, it's a primary discipline in the Jewish schools. All for what? So when they go to college, they'll have what?
Intellectual capacity.
They won't know any halachot. They don't know how to be religious. They don't know how to function outside of a Jewish community. They don't know how to be a husband who knows halachot. They don't know how to be a father when their kid asks them a question in halakha. They don't know. So what do they really study? This is what Maran says. Maran says right here. Mipnei sherov hanashim, because most women, don't read here woman. Read most people who don't have time. En da'atan mechuvanot litlamed. They don't have sufficient peace of mind, time in their life to study properly. Umotziot divrei Torah divrei havai lefenu da'atan, and they therefore use the Torah for incorrect. The Torah doesn't help them practically when they need it.
So where did this Gemara-centric idea of Limud Torah come from?
By Chachmei Ashkenaz, and not all of them. In the generations, a few generations ago, there was something called Pilpul. This was a discipline that took over Ashkenaz. The Chachmei Ashkenaz who fought against Pilpul, the Maharsha says, from the day Pilpul came to the world, Hashem lost the last place he left to exist in this world. One of Chachmei Ashkenaz says, from the day Pilpul came, it was worse than the day that Ben Mikdash was destroyed. Of
course, Chachamei Sfarad didn't even accept this approach of study. But by Chachamei Ashkenaz, it was a big deal. There were wars.
How many true Sephardic yeshivot are left?
Today, no. I don't think. Even ours is almost on the way out. No.
Hours.
Nah, the one where I studied in Yerushalayim.
Oh, I see. Oh.
Most
Sorry.
of that is what's happened. The generation. What's the problem with studying Torah properly? On 1 foot. When you study Torah properly, when you're studying Tanakh, in order to study Mishnah, in order to study Talmud, in order to get practical conclusions in the Rambam, Shulchan Aruch from it, there's no time for games. There's no time for thinking about logic this way, maybe that way, maybe this opinion, maybe that opinion. There's no time for that. You have to learn properly. You can't start making your head crooked. The moment you deviate somewhere, it's like when you steer your steering wheel a little bit to the right. Right now you're going to drive straight, but give it about half a mile and you're off the highway. In the world of Chachmei Hapilpul among Chachmei Ashkenaz, where they weren't studying halakha, they weren't studying for any practical conclusions. It doesn't make a difference what the students of the Bnei Midrash say. It doesn't mean the rabbi gets up and gives a shiur for 2 hours. That's all wrong. It's very logical, but it's not true. It doesn't make a difference. There's no negative ramification of that. But in the Bnei Midrash, where you're sitting around a table and the rabbi is expecting you that when you study the laws of Shabbat and the Talmud, that you're going to properly rule like the Shulchan Aruch, he has no time for you to play games. That method of study is boring. I mean boring. For those who really understand, it's exciting. But for those who are still learning, they're still growing, they feel like unless they're right, they don't have a say in the Bnei Midrash. HaPeretz always says, take the young students to the briskers. Go take them over there. Let them for a year or two have fun. After they're done having fun, bring them back to the Bnei Midrash. It's okay. It's okay to engage students. But the Chazon Ish says, when are these yeshiva students going to stop sharpening their minds and start using them? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Well, what's being proposed here is a very integrated, really holistic order
Approach
of
of studying Torah.
This leads to this, and it creates a whole
And that's why
picture.
Maran is saying, if you don't have time in your day to begin with the Tanakh and go to the Mishnah, go to the Talmud, go to the Rambam, go to Shulchan Aruch, if you don't have those hours in the day, because if you had to study the laws of Shabbat like that, it would take you 6, 7, 8 years to finish the laws of Shabbat. If you do it all day. If you don't have that time, don't do it. Put the Gemara away. Go to the bookshelf, take out a book of halakha, and study it. Just so you know how to do Shabbat, you know how to keep kasher, and if you have extra hours in your day to also engage in Shas and Talmud, fine. But the main bulk of your study has to be practical. That's what the Ramah said yesterday. The Ramah said that a person should never study anything except for Tanakh, Mishnah, Talmud, and halakha, nothing else. That's because there's nothing else that's practical. But this approach is very boring for some people. Now, what about women? I'll tell you. My wife and I have been fighting about this ever since we got married. My wife is, let's say I'm the feminist in the family. My wife is not,
In some ways, yeah. PhD.
Yeah, but she doesn't consider that to be a feminist accomplishment. My wife and the feminist movement don't get along with each other very well.
Well, there's reasons
Okay?
for that.
My wife will always complain. If she were to make a challah baking event tomorrow, she could fill up Petco Park with the right speakers and the right music and the right red strings, and then she could fill up the whole, look, Shabbat, worldwide Shabbat, they could fill up a stadium. What if she would offer an alternative for women? Let's do Talmud, Masechet Shabbat, Gemara, Rashi, Tosafot, Ritva, Rashba, Ran, Marsha, all the commentaries. Who's coming? It's going to be her and the sign in Petco Park. Maybe 3 people, 4 people.
We saw that recently, the Kabbalah and the challah baking.
That's right.
Like the mystical
My
aspects.
wife's attitude here, I'm telling this is my wife. My wife's attitude, and I'm not speaking for myself, my wife's attitude is that every generalization is false. All of them. But they all come from somewhere.
Generalization.
It was a stereotyping, a group of people.
Oh,
they're not. You can't take a person and say, all women are like this, all men are like that. Even when Chachamim say that about men and women, they're obvious to the Chachamim that you have women like Sarah Imenu, who ran the world from inside of her tent, a woman like Dvorah, who literally ran the Jewish people as the head of the Jewish people. But
She was a Dayan.
one has to realize how many Dvorahs do we have in our history compared to the Sarai. I mean, how many women do we have that did step up to the plate, that did lead us in war, that led us on halakha, that led our court systems? One can argue opportunities being available. I'm not here to get into all of those details. My wife's belief is that really, something about you can argue that it's the way women are brought up as opposed to the way women are inherently. I'm not here to decide either way. That at least according to today, if you were to give a Talmud class like this in many places, not all places, even if you go to New York and you have 1,000 women, for every 1,000 women that you had, you'd have 9,000 who'd rather be somewhere else. And Chachamim, we're not ruling that a woman is not allowed to study Torah.
They're talking about the nature.
But if you were to make a stereotype, is that the Talmud class in Hilcot Shabbat is not where everyone is going to go to. But if you have a woman that does want to, that will, of course. How do you think Devorah became a prophetess and became leader of the Jewish people? That door is not allowed to be closed, which that was a mistake throughout our history. There were times and places in our history where the door to the Beit HaMikdash was closed to women. My grandmother lived in a place in Yemen where even though her father was a rabbi, he was not allowed to teach her, not because of Jewish law, because of Yemenite law. It was like, remember in Afghanistan, what was it? In Afghanistan, they threw acid on a whole group of schoolgirls.
Yeah.
Right.
Because women are allowed to get an education.
Still.
My grandmother was illegal for my grandfather, her father, to teach her Torah. When my grandmother came to Israel, she raised her family, and at the age of 50, she went to Ulpan. She taught herself how to read and write Hebrew. My grandmother knew Tanakh by heart before she knew how to read and write. She would sit in the closet and listen to the boys chant Tanakh. And then afterwards, she learned how to read. She was crying. She would say, "These are the letters that I always knew, but I didn't know how to read them." And she wrote my father, who was her oldest son, her first letter in Hebrew. He still has it, my father. He started saying, "Arulat Teman, cursed is Yemen, that didn't let her daughters study." That was her. She cursed Yemen. There were unfortunate times in our history like that. L'maaseh, look, our kollel is open to women. Aside for one or two that's come. But also look at this. How many men come?
Yeah.
I'm not just hating on the women. If you have right now Torah and Super Bowl night, you'd be fill up the whole place. Barbecue and Breita, I don't know, garlic gamas, whatever, menorah martinis. I see the events happen in San Diego. You can fill up a whole place like that. But nobody's coming to the Torah. It's not happening. That's what the Chachamim tells us. That for every 1,000 students, why does the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot say, have many students? What's the purpose? The purpose is that Chachamim say from every 1,000 students that come to study Tanakh, 500 will study Mishnah. From 500 will study Mishnah. 250 will study Talmud. From the 250 that will study Talmud, only one of them will know how to be Moreh Horah, will be ruling halachot. So what if you have 500? Then you only have half a student who knows how to teach halakha. That's why you have to have a lot of students. But to realize that not everybody is going to be cut out ultimately for making the Torah theirs. If it was up to me to redo the Jewish school system, half of the disciplines we teach them to throw them out the window. How much can you study dinim class?
So
How much more can you go to Chumash? The same Chumash as the year 2. They don't even know which book of Chumash are you studying. I don't remember.
But you just raised an interesting dilemma, which is those places that don't allow a secular education and just a Torah education, if only that's such a small percentage will really do anything with it, what happens to everybody else?
A waste of time.
It's just
An utter waste of time.
It's creating a welfare.
Which is why our Chachamim were always
Work.
aware. By the way, there was that famous Chacham, a Sephardic Chacham. Rabbi Yaakov Chagiz. The family is famous for two reasons. Infamous, should I say. The grandfather of the family was a Sabbathian. And he was the one who instituted the celebration of the holiday of Tu B'Shvat. So I was like, the famous Chacham Chagiz celebrated Tu B'Shvat. Yes, that's because he was a follower of Shaddai Tzvi. The son was very famous. The grandson of the first one was very famous for being the number one persecutor of Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal. The grandfather, father, son, the father of Yaakov Chagiz was, and there's something that bothers me in the modern Jewish trends. When people start a movement, they pretend like it's them who started this movement. It's like when Hasidim pretend that they invented the word Hasid. They say, what did the Vilna Gaon? The Vilna Gaon, they read in his grave, Harav HaChasid. You know that. Well, he wasn't a Hasid. Are you stupid? The word Hasid, it doesn't belong to you. The Vilna Gaon was a Hasid. It's not the Hasid with a fuzzy hat Hasid. Hasid is he was the righteous man of a generation. That's why he's called a Hasid. The Mishnah already says Chasidim Harishonim, the early Chasidim. There were many groups of Chasidim. Someone grabbed the word that was relevant to everybody and they owned it. And then they defined what is a Chasid. You think Chasid? You think fuzzy hats and side curl. Musar. The word Musar exists way before Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. But then there's the Musar movement, and they go, we don't study Musar. When they say that, now they throw away all the books of the Musar. The movement that was against the study of Musar was against the specific study of Musar as was set out by the Musar movement in Europe. It's an interesting thing that people hijack terms. Why am I telling you right now? Oh, so you have these people. You know, Rav Shamshon Hirsch, he invented secular life together with religious life. Yeshiva University, they invented secular studies together with Torah. These are very cute things. Rav Kook was the first religious Zionist. These are all wonderful things, and it's true. In the Judaism that these people came from, they were innovators. But they weren't so original elsewhere. Rambam was a doctor. And a Talmid Chacham. We have poets and Talmid Chachamim, artists Talmid Chachamim. We have historians Talmid Chachamim. Rabbi Yaakov Chagi started a yeshiva, which was the first yeshiva high school you could think of. In this yeshiva, there were 3 tracks. There was the tracks for the boys who were studying Torah, and they were also getting, they weren't the brightest to go on and study secular studies. I mean, the middle track was the students that were studying the sciences and mathematics and geography alongside Torah. Then there were the boys who were not that bright. They were studying vocations alongside Torah. Whatever, carpentry, whatever they would do with blacksmiths, whatever. And then it was the elite track of those who, yes, finished their secular education, but didn't continue in that track. They went on to a purely Torah track. Because they were selected by the rabbis, the students of the yeshiva, that ultimately they would be the next poskim, the dayanim of the next generation. And that was a 3rd track. In today's world, they're putting everybody in the 3rd track. And expecting they're all coming out some brilliant geniuses of Torah.
What was the percentage of the 3rd track?
I don't know. I don't have that number to tell you. I don't know. But probably not as large as the other 2.
When was this?
Yeah. You want to look up on your phone? Rabbi Yaakov Chagiz, Hagiz. And what you see today is they have this illusion that every guy who's going to go to yeshiva is coming out some Rosh. How many Rosh Yeshivas can you have if all the 1,000 students will be Rosh Yeshivas? So who's going to be their students? The approach is, you found him? Jacob. Hagiz. Chagiz.
Yitzhak?
Yitzchak Chagiz, is that his name? That was Yaakov.
Or Yaakov? I don't know. Well, no, I'm not finding.
Try Jacob Chagiz.
I'm not saying Hagiz.
Try with a CH.
Yeah. Hagiz.
He's a son, Moshe Chagiz.
There's Moshe.
Yeah, click on Moshe, you'll find
Yeah.
his father.
Moshe, born in 1671.
Okay, what's his father? You see family?
It's here, it's just with an H.
Jacob Hagiz. Born in 1620.
That's his father?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Yaakov Hagiz.
Yaakov, okay.
Yeah.
The same thing about his yeshiva?
Maybe if I was writing a little depth here, but I can't tell from skimming.
Okay, so he was born 1620 to 1674. No, it doesn't talk about his... Talks that he had a yeshiva and the students gathered around him, but not about the definition, like well, not what happened in his yeshiva. He was an active in opposition to Shabtai Tzvi. Okay. Rama ends. Visha, and a woman, eina chayevet lemedet b'nat Torah. She does not have to teach her son Torah. And the obligation of teaching Torah is on the father. What difference does that make? If they were going to sue each other, let's say in court, who needs to pay for the education of the child?
Father.
It's on the father. ומכל מקום, but nonetheless, אם עוזרת לבנה ולבעלה שעסקו בתורה, if she helps her son or her husband learn Torah, חולקת שכר בהדייהו. She receives equal reward to him in that. And she becomes his partner in that limud Torah. Any questions of what he said until now? I don't want to leave anybody hanging in a place where they're not comfortable. So, Halacha Zayin. This halacha is very difficult. It's a very difficult halacha. I don't know how to tell you this. It goes against the approach of most rabbis today. Call this week from somebody, oh, there's a person coming to town, they need a place to be there. I said, my community's not going to be the right fit for them, I'm sorry. But yeah, I felt bad. But I was preparing for the shiur, and this halakha came out. And melamdim Torah letalmid she'eno hagum. Do not teach Torah to a student who's not a proper student. They have problems with students. Ela machzirin oto lemutav. First, you bring him back to the proper path. Umanhigin oto b'derech yishara, and you may set him on a straight road. Ubodkin oto, and you check him and examine him. V'achar kach machnisim oto lebet midrash. Then you bring him to the bet midrash, umelabim oto, and you teach him. What can you do? You can't give everybody the Torah. Not everybody belongs inside of the Beit Midrash. There are people who can negatively influence the Beit Midrash. When a community becomes a free-for-all, it negatively impacts a Kehillat.
Did you ever spend time as any of the Bali Tshuva Yeshiva touches Ish?
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy sometimes.
I can't say anything on
Yeah. But that would be an example.
So you can argue that there are places which they're doing this part of bringing people back to the right path. So it's not really a Beit Midrash. It's a bringing people to the right path Midrash in the guise of Beit Midrash. Okay, I'm not here to say that you throw people out. You see a student they're not a good person. It's the Chacham's obligation not to continue teaching him Torah anymore. If you want to help him become a good person, you can. But until then, you can't give him Torah. Yes.
When we say Talmud Torah right now, are we talking still the in-depth, kind of like we were a few sentences back? The 9 hours a day guy? Or are we still the 2 hours a day?
Everything. What do I mean? Somehow Jews are willing to accept that the martial arts, if you're not cut out to be the next color belt, then they shouldn't give you the next color belt. If you're not cut out to be the student of the guru or the carrier of the samurai sword, there's honor in that. But somehow with Torah, we're supposed to peddle it on the street corners. Sushi and Parsha, and every low life should come study Torah. What about the Torah? Torah it's our sister, it's our mother, it's our what? Everybody you peddle your sister to? What about the integrity of the Torah? Why is the black belt more impressive to you than, wow, who got into the Beit Midrash? Where's the discipline of Torah that we have? I told my wife and I were talking today. Sometimes you get disappointed in the world. You think that everybody has leadership qualities. And then you realize that some people are just not, they're not capable of being leaders. They are natural followers. And not in a positive way of being a follower. And it disappoints you because you think you're cut out for more than that, but they don't think they're cut out for more than that. One of the things that makes people very upset when they read the Rambam's writings is his elitist attitudes towards the Chachamim. There's scholars and ignoramuses. Rambam doesn't spend much time talking about middle people. They're not middle people. There's the students of the scholars and the scholars. So even those who are not yet scholars are students of the scholars. And there's the ignoramuses and everyone who's trying to be an ignoramus. And the Rambam is very clear that, we don't teach Torah to ignoramus. Who cares about the ignoramus? And the Chachamim, wow, the Chachamim. You find similar parallels in the world of Greek philosophy. There's the philosophers and there's the peasants among the world. And in today's Kabbalah, Hasidut world, everybody's holy, everybody's great, everybody's wonderful. It's nice to include everybody, but also you destroyed the category of who are the real carriers of the faith. Who are the ones holding the torch? Who are the people that are really the Chachamim of the generation? We lost out on that too.
But you have the idea of the tzaddik.
Right, that's not right. Which is not I'll protest this till the day I die. It was not a Jewish. What is a tzaddik? They tell me, the tzaddik of the generation. Okay, is he the posek? No. Is he the dayan? No. Is he the one who gives classes in the Beit Knesset? No. Does he teach kids in school? No. Does he know how to slaughter a cow? No. Does he know how to write mezuzot? No. So what is he? Tzaddik. What is it? Good for nothing tzaddik. What is a tzaddik? Who invented this man? There's an article I suggest to you from Yafa Eliach. Many have tried to disprove her. Some maybe even did a good job disproving her, but it's worth it. There's a Rabbi Moshe, not Rabbi, his professor Moshe, I want to say his last name is Rossman. I might be wrong. He wrote something in search of the Baal Shem Tov. It's a fascinating work. The world of academia always struggles with the Baal Shem Tov because there's not much to go on historically. Who was the Baal Shem Tov? Who wasn't the Baal Shem Tov? Yafa Eliach wrote an article. He argues with her in this article, but Yafa Eliach has an article where she claims that if you look at the Russian Orthodox Church in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, there were breakaway like priests.
Mm-hmm.
There were these Kabbalistic, mystical leaders in the every village had one of these leaders, and they led their groups, and she ties all the parallels between that and the rise of the Hasidic movement and the tzaddikim of every city and all that. And I'm not here to say negative. Meaning, if you are a person who believes that you can't learn anything from the non-Jewish world, this will offend you. But if you're like me, who believes there's a lot you can learn from the non-Jewish world, it's not offensive. It's just a unique trend because history doesn't happen in a vacuum. History always happens with what else is going on around it. But just because they were traveling miracle workers doesn't mean that now becomes a Jewish belief because Jewish people did it. This next halakha though is more important. Harav, if there's a rabbi, she'eno holech b'derech tova, that is not going on a proper path. Af al pi shechacham gadol hu, even though he's a great chacham. It's not just he's a great chacham. V'chol ha'am tzrichim lo, he's so great that the whole nation needs him. Meaning if they don't have him, they don't have someone who can answer their questions. En lemedim mimeno, you're not allowed to learn Torah from him, ad she'achzor l'mutav, until he returns to the proper path. What does that mean? What are they warning us? Are we awake?
Yeah.
What does it mean you can't say Torah from a Torah scholar who's not in a good path?
It means their midot is very important. If you're going to study with somebody, they have to have good midot.
Why? But he's just teaching me wisdom.
Because the living example number is important.
Another famous story about the
Not just learning, just like if
Information.
you just want to learn like what the person said, and then read a book, you're learning a lot more than that from a person. And if this is like supposed to be the great person, you're supposed to be learning from how they interact with that person, how they this, how they that. That's
There can't be a conflict between the person's life and the teaching.
yeah, exactly.
There was once an ethics professor in university. He was walking down the street with his students, and he sees a wallet in the. He picks up the wallet, takes out the cash, puts it in his pocket, keeps walking. Students are horrified. Hey, sir, what's going on with you? He says, what? He says, that wallet belonged to somebody. He says, so what? He left it there. I took the money. But you're supposed to be the ethics professor. He said, in room 403 next to me is the geometry professor. You expect him to be a triangle? This is a certain attitude, especially in the world that is the West, which is, who cares if there's a disconnect between what you do and who you are?
But
I was just speaking to a okay, I can't choose. Okay, L'maaseh, you have many people. Oh, he's not a nice guy, but he's a good rabbi. He knows his stuff. I'm sorry. The part of being a Talmid Chacham is that you have to really be a Talmid Chacham. Part of being a Talmid Chacham is to be a good person. If you're not a good person, so when I learn, see, people believe Torah is some kind of objective thing. You ask 10 rabbis the same question, you're going to get 10 different answers. What changes those answers? Sometimes it's the perception of something. Sometimes it's the books they care about. Sometimes it's the style of psikah. Sometimes it's where they come from. It's who they are. Who they are as a person. You see a person who's very strict, very harsh. Go look at the way they rule halakha. You'll find they're very harsh and strict as well. You find a person like Kehillat, open-minded, loving people. His halachot also come out that way. We believe very much that the Torah that a person teaches, there is a certain element of subjectivity to it. It doesn't mean the whole Torah is subjective. It means though that who you are really influences your Torah. And if you study Torah from a person who's bad, I once worked in a yeshiva and I quit the job. I was there a very short time. that rabbi in the yeshiva would curse his students in public. Like real curses, like, he should drop dead on the way back to the dormitory kind of curses. They said, but he's brilliant. I said, that's really brilliant. He's an abusive person. How do you study Torah from such a person? You have people that are rabbis, that they've been convicted of raping people, molesting people. All of a sudden, they go back. This week, the chief rabbinate issued an interesting ruling. There's a famous rabbi who was a few times already accused of raping his male students. And, okay, something not rape, it was just abuse of power, and whatever, I'm not going to get involved. He admitted once, they exiled him up to the north, he came back. Last I heard, he was opening up a Beit HaMikdash in Jerusalem all over again. And he had hundreds of students building a Beit HaMikdash for him. It's a man that admitted to crimes that he did. And now they were trying to figure out whether he will lose his title rabbi from the chief rabbin. And the chief rabbinate put out a ruling saying no, he still can maintain his title rabbi, because even though he's a sex offender, being a sex offender is not in direct contradiction of being a Torah scholar. Now the question to the chief rabbinate is, would you say the same thing about a rabbi who didn't keep kosher? And they answer, no, a rabbi who doesn't keep kosher is worse. Because that's actually an avera. Here, what was that? You should see a fascinating letter, unbelievable letter they put. Which is amazing. Because I'm not here advocating now to go to pick on every rabbi in the world, get rid of his smichah. But there are certain things you would think, I mean, that crossed the line, right? That one crossed the line. No.
There's very strong laws in this country about that kind of sex offender in terms of kind of
there's
jobs you can get, and, where you can go congregate, public places.
Yeah, but if the church will hire you again, they can't govern that.
There's some pretty powerful language in the Torah about that. And that's as primary of a source as you get.
I should bring you this. Hold on. I actually have the letter. Where's my phone? If you want that, I will find you this letter.
The Rambam, somewhere in the Rambam it talks about if you eat in the Ve'elah, you get like 3 lashes, which is a Torah prohibition. It's relatively minor compared to this type of thing. I mean, I don't know anybody eats in the Ve'elah,
Yeah. I don't see how anybody can compare that as less.
Well, you should see it's actually.
These people are obsessive with it.
Actually, might be good news for some people. One second, I'll spread.
Bad news for the rest of
I
us.
was gonna say,
Here. So this was ruled on the 3rd to the 4th. It was the 3rd of April in Adar. They took out all the relevant names of people. Okay. Okay, so basically their whole attitude is a rabbi can lose his ordination if he's involved in sexual illicit behavior, sexually promiscuous behavior. And they're trying to prove that what he did was not sexually promiscuous. It's not arayot. It's not adultery in terms of one of the 3, capital crimes. And they read the following. So I want to tell you it's a good news. It might be good news for LGBTQ activists in the Jewish community, because you're going to see now what he says. וכן מצאנו התייחסות הלכתית מעניינת ומקורית. We found some unique and original thinking in halakha regarding שבה הוגדר מעשה זה של משכב זכור, that homosexual relationships are not considered כמעשה תועבה. They're considered an abominable act. ואינו בגדר עריות, but not a sexually promiscuous act. Meaning, they're trying to differentiate between Gilu Arayot, which would be sleeping with one's mother, or raping a person, to homosexual relationships. Which is what this rabbi was not just. It's not. He wasn't gay. And this rabbi was mamash. Nitzatet keta me'asever tshuva kalacha. We're going to quote from this book that says. The language is long. נמצאנו למדים מדבריו, so we learn that from this book that we mentioned, שאין ביסקו משב זכור בדין קרבה לעריות, וכמו שכתוב בפוסקים, that the prohibition of being with a man is not as bad, for example, as just being alone in the room with a woman, which that would disqualify him from his smicha. not touching her, just being alone with her in a room would disqualify him, but not what he did. V'digdeh came Shulchan Torah. He even proved this from the wording of the Torah that it uses to'eva and not arayot. And they signed this name. 3 rabbis from the chief rabbinate signed their names, and they therefore kept this rabbi's ordination. Now he's back in the streets, and everybody knows. Are you allowed to go learn Torah? They say his parasha classes are from the most fascinating parasha classes that ever given in this generation. Good for you. Go learn parasha from someone less fascinating. But there are people somehow they can't. This rabbi's a bully. This one abuses people. This one. Listen, nobody's perfect, but there are some people that are really not perfect at all.
Sociopaths.
And what happens? This halakha is very relevant. This halakha has to your children. If the Talmid Chacham you're studying Torah from is a bad person, you have to stay away because his Torah is bad Torah also.
This example you gave goes back to what we were studying earlier, which is that a rabbi shouldn't have a conflict of interest with working during the week or being owned by his community and so forth, because it can influence the ability to make clear halachic decisions. And it sounds like there's something biased about what they came up with here. It's not like
Yeah,
a
no,
pure
that was
Torah.
that's right.
Yeah.
That was trying. They were clearly trying to find a way, and
No,
that's
I
the way.
was gonna say that sounded like if we have a conclusion, now how do we steer ourselves to it?
Yeah.
As opposed to like, okay, well, there's a question.
That was
where
they
does
shot the
it-
arrow.
Exactly.
They shot the arrow, then they painted the bullseye around it. That's the
Exactly.
mindset.
Right.
Now here, this is really. There are stories in the last few years.
No, it endangers other children.
There was a prince, head of a seminaries in Jerusalem for girls, American rabbi. 8 seminaries he owned, and he didn't rape anybody, but he was in sexual relationships with many of the girls in his schools. Some of them not sexual, some just romantic. Some I don't know. Bottom line, and every year he would have like a new influx of girls. This is talking about 8 seminaries. He owned them, and he would go between each one. Some of his students came and spoke out against him. Overnight, they sold the seminary. It's not his. It now belonged to his mother. It went out of hands. Bottom line is that until today, when my wife hears that somebody wants to send their daughter to one of his schools, she makes a phone call. And until today, every mother that she's spoken to has told my wife, "How dare you speak Lashon Hara about this rabbi?" This rabbi has admitted in front of Bedin what he's done. What are you supposed to do? How do you tell people, hey, if the rabbi touches you, run away. It's not okay. The rabbi in Tzfat, they
Berlin.
busted. No, not
The other one.
another one. And his wife knew that he had other women aside from her. He told her that he's fixing their neshamot. He is a Kabbalist. He's fixing their neshamot. And his wife kept finding him more people because she thought her wife was a tzaddik of the generation. In which school did they go to? Like, from which place did they tell them? The one that you mentioned? One of his students wrote a book about him. This thick of a book. I have a copy of it. Oh, I have a copy of it?
Sure.
Every Lag BaOmer I want to burn it, but I need this. Okay.
Evidence.
They wrote a book that the Gadol of the generation, the head of the generation, he can do every Avirah in the Torah, even to take someone else's wife, to save the generation on a Kabbalistic level. The perversion that has to go through someone's mind to learn the Torah and to come to that conclusion, it's not normal. It's something that it didn't start today. It started a long time ago. I'm veering away from sexual crimes. Rav Kook, was once meeting with a Hasidic Rebbe. You may know there's some Hasidic Rebbes that have a custom, they don't pray with the Beth Knesset. Even when they come to the synagogue, let's say this was a Hasidic synagogue, some Rebbes will go lock themselves in the kids' room and pray alone while the rest of the community is praying. I think it's unbecoming to see how holy the Rebbe is when he's praying. And probably today's Rebbe is sitting on his iPhone or something over there. But for in the older Rebbes, they would meditate, they would cry, and they didn't want to see, so they'd go pray alone. So once one of these Rebbes came to visit Rav Kook, he said, it's time to pray mincha, let's go pray mincha. And they walked to the Beit Midrash, and the Rebbe said, no, I'm going to pray outside. He says, why not pray inside? There's a minyan. No, it's our custom and our dynasty that we pray alone. He said, good for you and the custom of your dynasty, but here you have to learn how to keep Shulchan Aruch. And he dragged him inside of the Beit Knesset and says, you pray here with the minyan like everybody else. What was Rav Kook going to drive home from this story? Was the moment you begin to say that because this person was a tzaddik, he was allowed to deviate from halakha, is the moment you open the door for everyone on the title of tzaddik to deviate from halakha. Today it's that he can pray at 1 o'clock in the afternoon shacharit. Tomorrow is that he can keep Shabbat till Tuesday. The next is that he can start Shabbat an hour into Shabbat because of Rabbi Yonatan. And before you know it, he can take someone else's wife to save the generation. Mahan is saying the moment you see a Talmid Chacham who is not on the good path, he's not following the Torah, run away. It's forbidden, even if the whole world needs him. And they quote themselves based on the Gemara. The Gemara says that there was a Talmid Chacham who even the Chachamim needed him. That's how great he was. But he was not following halakha properly, and they excommunicated him, even though they needed him. Because it was better that they shouldn't answer the questions properly, but not to learn halakha from such a person. We're up to 8 halachot of the laws of Talmud Torah. In the laws of Talmud Torah, there are 26 halachot. So we scratched the tip of the iceberg. But B'ezrat Hashem, at least I hope we got a little bit of a taste that even in learning Torah, there are halachot about how you learn Torah. B'ezrat Hashem, Shavuot is coming. I'll be sending out a schedule tomorrow morning. Everybody is welcome to join us for the whole Chag of Shavuot. It'll be a pleasure to have you here. If you want to just come for the classes and go home at some time in the middle of the night, you're more than welcome to. God willing, we're looking at some interesting topics, and we should merit together the Kehillat, l'hagdil Torah u'la'adira, to make the Torah greater and to make it more precious to the whole Jewish people.